Good evening, guys. You know what time it is. It's time for tactics. Hey, so welcome back to the Tactics of Trav channel where we go through all things tactical when it comes to chess. So, guys, I'm going to bring to you a really cool game that I played just a couple weeks ago against my 2056 neighbor. So his name's David Kerkhov, great player in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. He hasn't played competitively in years, and the only reason I know him is because when I moved into the neighborhood a couple years ago, I'd heard from my pest guy that this guy was a great chess player, and I was like, all right, I got to meet him. So I knocked on his door back in the first couple weeks I moved here and introduced myself, and we hit it off. And he comes over and plays chess every once in a while just to help me prep for tournaments. So anyway, guys, this is an over-the-board game. He's a 2056 rated player. I do think he's probably gone down, a couple hundred points since, but he's still technically a 2056. So let me show you how I crushed a 2056 rated player, guys. So in this game, I'm playing black, he's playing white, and he plays e4. And I play my trusted Sicilian with c5. He goes with knight f3. We go e6. And we'll see what he does here. d4, c takes, knight takes d4. a6. You guys have seen me play this 1,000 times on the channel. You know I love playing the Sicilian Con. I'm very good at it. I've seen a lot of the lines, so I just know what to do. Bishop to d3. Technically, he should play knight c3, but it's probably going to transpose into the main line anyway. Queen c7. Now, technically, if he had played knight c3, my queen c7 move would keep him from going bishop to c4. And, he played bishop d3, so it doesn't really do that. It doesn't really accomplish that task, but it still keeps him from pushing e5. Castles, knight f6, the king's knight variation of the Sicilian Con. Knight c3, now he plays it. So we play, so quiz question for you guys. In the Sicilian Con, do we play bishop to b4 in this situation, or we play bishop to c5? Just pause your videos. That's right. We play bishop to c5 in this variation because it doesn't make any sense to go bishop b4 because he's already castled and we're not pinning the knight to anything. So there's going to be no tricks. There's not going to be any tactics most likely on the c3 knight. So we're going to go bishop to c5 and he is probably going to go knight b3 to counter attack my bishop on c5. So I'm going to go bishop c5, bishop to e3, d6. So it was important to go d6 here, guys, because for a couple reasons. I can develop my knight to d7. We don't typically want to go knight c6 in the Sicilian Con because knight b to d7 helps protect this knight here in case he does decide to go bishop g5 and take. We can take back with the knight without doubling our pawns on f6. Queen e2. Knight b d7, h3, castles, knight b3. So now he plays knight b3 to attack my bishop on c5. And what would you do here, guys? So pause your videos. If you were playing black, if you were playing me, what would you do after knight b3? All right, so a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, maybe I go bishop to b4, maybe I bring it back to b6, or maybe a7. I don't like a7 because then you have bishop takes a7, your rook's on a7 after rook takes, so it's kind of a weird spot for your rook. But you're probably thinking along the lines of that, and I wanted to play a more creative tactical Travs type move. So what did I play? I played b5, and you're like, b5? Why would you play b5? So the idea is after bishop takes c5, I take with the pawn, so d takes c5, and I'm threatening to press c4, which would pawn fork his bishop on d3 and his knight on b3. And even if he moves his knight out of the way to knight d2, then I can still press c4 and trap the bishop, because for now his pawn entraps him, because the pawn on e4 and the pawn on c2 and his queen on e2 blocks his bishop in. So that was my idea, my creative idea, to try to win a piece with a pawn. So after this, he takes, and I think he saw it. So knight takes c5, d takes. So our plan's looking pretty good so far. And then he plays, to keep me from pushing c4, guys, he plays b3, which, shame on that move. Shame on b3. So technically b3, guys, is a blunder. So in practical play, I thought that that was a good defense to c4, and he obviously thought it was too, because that's why he played it. But it's still a blunder, and it's an interesting reason. So I ran this through Stockfish 18. So this is like the 3,500 rated level, guys. Like, it's super deep, gets 20 seconds per move to calculate. And here's the reason that b3 is a mistake. So with that, Stockfish still wanted me to press c4. So if I press c4, here's the line. c4, b takes c4, b takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight e5, bishop f4, bishop to d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, and queen c4. That's a 5-move sequence, guys, that I would have to calculate to properly punish white for playing b3. So you know that computer lines are perfect. We're humans. We don't play perfect. I've said this like a million times on the channel, but we should still strive for that. We should still see if we can do it, because that way you can play ultra tactical, ultra fun chess. You're seeing the future. You got a crystal ball. And so, you know, that's what we strive to do on the Tactics of Trav channel. We know it's probably not going to be possible. Maybe somebody in the future will play 3,500 rated level, but in 2026, we don't have grandmasters like that. But yeah, interesting line, guys, because it's just a really cool line how that plays out, because you can essentially like still win a piece, because what happens is when you play that, white's still going to either lose the bishop here, and they're going to have to sack the bishop, or you're going to pick up the knight because the knight is undefended because he pressed b3. So just a really interesting line. So anyway, but sadly, I missed it. I didn't calculate that deep. I didn't see it either. And I played bishop to b7, just developing my light squared bishop. And white plays f4 to attack on the king side. But you know what, guys? Shame on that 4! Shame on that move! So that's still a blunder, guys. So somewhat related to the last reason, because Stockfish still wants me to push c4. But let me show you the wrinkle in this one that's actually really interesting. So f4 is a blunder, because if I press c4, same thing as the last sequence, b takes c4, b takes c4, rook a to b1, c takes d3, c takes d3, and queen takes c3. So that's an interesting line too, because you're probably wondering, wait a second, why doesn't white's bishop just retake on c4? Because that's what I was questioning too when I ran it through Stockfish, and here's the reason for that. So if in that line the bishop takes on c4, that's where you have rook a to c8, bishop takes a6, bishop takes a6, queen takes a6, and queen takes c3. So that's where you pick up the piece because of the b3 move. So it's somewhat related to the last blunder, because it still wants me to play c4, but that's where you can it's essentially a double attack, because after rook a to c8, you have a battery down the c file, and white can't save both the bishop and the knight. So just a really cool tactic, basically a double attack that takes advantage of white's initial blunder of b3, because now b3 doesn't defend the knight on c3. So just really interesting to explain why and see how the engine thinks and why these are technically blunders. So after that, guys, after f4, what do you think the evaluation bar has this game at? Like, who's winning and by how much? All right, so black is winning. I'm winning by minus 2.95, so almost 3 points after those two blunders. But in both cases, guys, I didn't see that deep either. So I pressed B4, and this is just to show, like, we're going to beat each other up on these shame bells, but it's really just to see, hey, can one of us, or can we all get better at the calculations required to play perfect chess? So that's what we're striving to do. So after B4, he plays E5, which I thought was a really good move, guys. So Stockfish did like B4 because I'm attacking the knight, but white plays a great response. My opponent played a great response by playing E5. And so basically what he's inviting is a desperado tactic. He's saying, okay, go ahead and take my knight on C3, Trav, because I'm going to take your knight on F6, because he's going to lose too much time if he tries to move his knight. And what I was looking at was like knight A4, which puts his knight on the rim and just gets me a much superior position. And then I can move, just get a better position than him. So by playing E5, he's playing a more active counterattacking move, which is a great move. So after E5, we go down the path. We say, okay, let's do it. B takes C3, E takes F6, knight takes F6, rook A to E1. So he moves this rook here. Rook F to D8. F5. Good move. Attacking on the king side. Trying to get his king side attack going. Now, pause your videos here, guys. It's more of a positional move, but should we take the pawn on F5 or not? No, we should not. That would be a bad positional move. We do not want to open lines for white, because if we took on F5, he could take with the rook, or he could take with the bishop. And in each case, that would be bad for us positionally. So we just push the pawn. We bypass it with E5. He plays bishop to G5. Good move. Pinning my knight to my rook on D8. And I had to think about this for a while, guys. I was wondering how to deal with this, because after bishop to G5, it's a little tricky, because I don't want to double my pawns on F6, but what can I do? I mean, I might go queen B6. I was looking at queen B6, and then with queen B6, I have a discover attack threat with like maybe C4 check, and then I could win the bishop on D3, but still not really, because he could just drag his bishop back to E3, blunting out my queen's scope on that diagonal that I'd be threatening C4 with. But I didn't think that was as solid as it needed to be, and I'm glad I ended up playing this move instead, because what I did is I calculated deep enough to see if it worked out, and it does. So what I decided to play was H6. So H6, inviting bishop takes F6, and he does, and I do. And the reason it's fine is because when I was looking at queen to G4 check, I have king to H7. So now I can use the G file, which is an open file for my rook, bring my rook back to G8 and attack the G2 pawn, because my bishop here on B7 is scoping that G2 pawn. So I could really gang up on the G2 pawn and attack kingside myself, because white decided to rip open the kingside. So that's the reason I decided to go down this path. And H6 was the best move, and him taking was the best move, and me retaking with the pawn was the best move. So I'm glad I just chose to go H6. So now he goes rook F2 to defend his G2 pawn. And I go king H7 with the idea of rook back to G8, attacking down the G file. Queen H5. We knew this was coming at some point. Rook G8. And black is winning with an evaluation of minus 0.49, so about a half point. Bishop to e4, good move. Cutting out my diagonal with my light squared bishop, which was aiming at g2. Rook a to d8, developing my last piece into the game. Queen f3. Bishop takes e4, good move. Queen takes e4, and a good positional play with rook to d4, attacking white's queen with tempo and claiming the d file. Queen to e3, and that with queen to e3, he's attacking the c3 pawn, guys, because that pawn is isolated and it can't be protected ever again by other pawns. So I moved queen a5 to protect it and counterattack his pawn on a2. a4. And rook d2. Rook e to e2. Rook d1 check. Rook to f1. Rook takes f1 check. King takes f1. Rook to d8. So I'm proud that I played rook d8 here, guys. This is a lot of, I mean, just not really a hard move to make, but if you saw my previous episodes on round 5 game at the Wyoming Community Foundation Open and round 3 game against higher level 1800-ish players over the board, rated players, I didn't seize open files in those games. And that was something I took to heart that I'm going to get better at, because it's super basic, but you just got to do it. It's just a matter of abiding by the rules. And we never want to say always take the open file, but generally you want to take the open file. And even though my rook was on the G file, which is open, it's not really doing anything on the G file. When we take the center file with the D file, there's a lot more activity there in the center of the board, because look where the pieces are for white's queen and rook. And I'm going to start making a play for this D4 square and trying to take over the center, because look at my pawn chain here. Like, it would be ideal if I could get my queen here, and here he takes, queen takes D4, and this pawn could really get better position by taking back here. That was kind of my plan, by rerouting my rook over to d8. All right, so now he plays g4. Queen to b4 with the plan that I just described. King e1. Queen d4. Pushing for the trade. King f2. And I played a prophylactic move here, and more of a positional move, which I'm proud about, because it shows that I'm growing in that area of my game. Because this is something that I probably would have just like rolled my eyes at in the past, and be like, ugh, you know, I don't want to play that. It's not like a fun move. But a5, just a very basic positional move, because in positional chess, guys, like when you get pawns like this, like that, you want to push your pawn, not always, because always is a strong word in chess, but generally to control both these pawns with this one pawn. And plus, I want him to trade, so I kind of want to kill the tempo and see what he does. King to f3. And with king to f3, guys, shame on king f3. Shame on that move. That was a mistake, like a big mistake. So it was a mistake of minus 2.5 points. So the reason why is because Stockfish likes queen to d1, b4, and c takes b4. So it's just not a good move of my opponent for that reason. So I played queen d1, which is the right move. It pins the rook to the king, and just more of a basic idea. And what I was looking to do here, guys, was potentially get this rook to d4 and maybe over to f4 check and try to checkmate him over here. And if not, maybe just a more simple plan of adding pressure to a pin piece. So this rook here is pinned to the king, right? So what do? We add pressure to a pin piece with bringing this rook here, d2, have two attackers on this rook. We control the queen that way. And then we can also take on c2 because the only defender of c2 is this rook, which is pinned. So that's the idea. And white goes for the gusto, takes my pawn on c5. Stockfish didn't necessarily dislike that move, but just called it a good move. It didn't call it like a best move or a great move. And so this is what we were just talking about. So I had a little bit of I had a deep think here. I had to take probably a good 15 minutes because even though this is a casual game and it's not a rated tournament game, guys, like we were both playing very hard because we're both competitive and we want to win, and we're both good players. And we had a clock, so we're playing in my my formal dining room here with this set with these pieces on game 90 increment 30. So I never said that in the beginning, but this was like almost like tournament atmosphere in the way we were playing. And then I had a clock, so we were playing legit. So what I was looking at was rook d4, and I wanted to go rook to f4 check and try to checkmate him on the side of the board. But it gets really complicated because I don't have enough time. It's not fast enough. Because after rook to d4, what I calculated during the game, and I kept myself from doing it, which I'm glad about, is he can go queen to f8, which is much faster, and then he can force perpetual check situation with queen takes f7. So rook d4, queen to f8, rook to f4 check, and he goes king g3. And if I go queen to like g1 check or something like that, he can actually hide on h4. And so I can't, it's not fast enough. And then he can take on f7 check and just perpetually check me over here. So I'm going to show you this other line too that Stockfish gave. If rook d4, queen f8, rook f4 check, king g3, and Stockfish would want me to go queen to d5. That's probably not what I would have played. I would have played probably queen g1 check, and then I would have run out of moves. So I'm glad I didn't do this. Glad I didn't go down that path, and instead played the proper solid move of rook to d2. Just a simple add pressure to a pin piece, guys. Very good principle to abide by when you have a pin piece. And because of that, queen to f8 will not be fast enough on his side. Because if he plays queen f8, he's going to get checkmated. We're going to have queen takes, e2 check, and then he's going to get mated shortly after. So because of this, he has to come back with his queen to f2. And now I just start exerting pressure, guys. This is something I'm getting better at too. It's just slowly crushing my opponent. So that's something that's different for me. I've always been one to want to knockout punch my opponent, like a Mike Tyson type of chess player. But instead, I need to be a little bit more methodical in certain positions, especially against good players like David, and just slowly crush them like a boa constrictor. So kind of like we talked about in chess lesson number 9, which is how and why to play positionally and play more like Tigran Petrosian type chess. So now I'm just going to crush my opponent, and rook takes c2, queen to e1, and I played queen to d5 check with the queen fork on the king and the pawn on b3. He goes king f2, and then I took the pawn on b3 with the slowly crushing you type of chess, and my opponent resigned. So I had a lead of minus 8.27 after queen takes b3. So, my opponent is a strong opponent. I don't think even though he's technically a 2056 USCF player, guys, like I played in that round 5 game at the Wyoming Community Foundation opening. It's a super underrated 1580 kid. I think he was a lot stronger, but I think that's what shows when you don't play competitive chess for a while is you take somebody who's been out of the game for even probably like a couple years and put them in today's game, and they're probably going to get just mollywopped by a competitive active player like me or anyone else who plays in the circuits, because chess has become so competitive, just like everything else. So um, I'm really proud of this game because it shows I'm starting to learn things that I wasn't doing before, like just making the slow, crushing positional move that I never had before, and just making moves like A5, like just a simple positional move. And you can still play tactically, but you don't want to give your opponents counterplay. So learning a ton, guys. I'm getting better. My next tournament's coming up on the 28th of this month. My wife approved for me to play in it because I just so busy, like kids sports and stuff like that. But excited to play in that in Nebraska. I'm coming for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, guys. I'm coming for those Nebraska players. I got a challenge I'm going to throw out, and anyway, that's coming up. So tune in to Sunday's video, guys, on chess tactics, our over-the-board tactics that we use to train for over-the-board games. And if you're getting value out of these videos, guys, I really encourage you and would really appreciate you guys just donating a couple bucks, because it just shows me that you're learning and that this is actually having an impact on people. Plus, I love the coffee. So $5, $10, whatever you feel like I deserve, go to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the bottom of this link description. So anyway, guys, appreciate your viewership. We'll see you on the next video.